The first time you visit Europe as an American is an unforgettable experience. Your whole entire worldview is flipped on its head, and everything you've been taught to believe up to that point, you realize is a lie. And while I can never experience Europe for the first time ever again, I can live vicariously through other Americans experiencing Europe for the first time. That said, let's go ahead and get into this first video.
Culture Shocks in Norway, Part 6. Just when you're getting used to the stores being closed on Sunday, which is another culture shock in itself, December comes around and the stores are open every day. Normally.
So, I've heard a lot about stores being closed on Sundays in Europe, and of course, every European country is a little bit different, but my experience in the Netherlands was that stores were open. Maybe they had slightly shorter hours, but the stores that I frequented the most, I don't even think changed their hours on Sundays. So Albert Heijn, for example, it was open until either 8 o'clock p.m. or 10 o'clock p.m. every single day. The gym that I went to, Basic Fit, 24-hour access. They had unstaffed hours and they had staffed hours, but you always have access as a customer. And again, I'm not sure if it's different in places like Norway because I haven't been. I do really want to go to Norway, by the way, specifically. But let me know if you're from Europe, what's the situation regarding store opening hours on Sundays like in your country?
Normally, stores above a certain size have to be closed on Sundays, so only more expensive convenience stores or a small section of the store can be open. But in December, that changes with extended hours. According to the law, stores can be open the 3 Sundays before Christmas between 2 and 8 p.m. This also helps spread out the crowds during this busy shopping period.
That's kind of interesting. So it's by law. I literally did not know that was a thing. Obviously, that's an objectively good thing when you talk about workers' rights and whatnot, because I know that working the weekends provided some of the most stressful shifts of my whole entire working life. But it's interesting that they reopen for that brief period of time throughout the year. And to her point, that does make sense logistically speaking to spread out those Christmas crowds.
Do you wish stores were always open on Sundays?
If you're from Europe and you are specifically from a country that doesn't allow stores to be open on Sundays, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments. Do you wish stores were open on Sundays in your country? On to the next video.
Things about living in Denmark that would send Americans into a coma. Let's go. Okay, starting with the obvious, taxes. Income tax can be anywhere from 37% to 53% of your income. For me, the taxes are well worth it for all the benefits you get from them.
So 37% to 53%. The 37% is probably a lot higher. In fact, it's definitely a lot higher than what you see in the lower tax brackets in the US. But that 53%, I don't think it's very different. I mean, in a place like California, for example, if you're in that top tax bracket, you're on the hook for probably around 50% of your income, give or take. Not to mention the crazy astronomical cost of living in much of coastal California. And you realize that you're probably coming away a lot better being in a place like Copenhagen. But to her point, you do get a lot more in return for your tax dollars. When I pay taxes in the Netherlands, I feel like I'm investing back into the quality of life that I get to benefit from as a member of that society, when I'm there, of course. And even now, if I'm paying Dutch taxes while living here in Thailand or living elsewhere around the world, I know that eventually I will get to reap the rewards of my investment. When I pay taxes in the US, I don't get that same feeling. I feel like my money is just disappearing into oblivion because I look around and the infrastructure is either stagnating or actually getting worse.
From them, but it can be a bit of a shock when you get that first paycheck and see what you're actually getting after taxes. All right, number 2, at least in Copenhagen, most apartments don't come with overhead lighting installed. We live in a brand new build, and our apartment came with lights in the bathroom and these lights under the kitchen cabinet. And that's it. That's pretty normal. You have to buy and install the rest of your light fixtures yourself.
That's pretty interesting. So it's a lot more customizable. That reminds me of a culture shock that I had in the Netherlands. I never actually rented an apartment out there, but I remember I found out that in the Netherlands, a lot of times apartments don't even come with the floor. So if you have hardwood floors, for example, and you move out of that apartment, you take the hardwood floors with you or you sell them to the next tenant. That blew my mind on so many different levels. And honestly, I'm so cheap that I would probably just stick with whatever concrete they have underneath for the floors. But I think that's really, really fascinating because in the US, oftentimes you can't customize your apartment. If you're renting, you can't paint the walls, you can't install light fixtures like this, you can't remove the floors and replace them with a different type of hardwood floors. You can't do any of that. Those are not options that you have. So I think that's a big part of why seeing this really, really blows a lot of American people's minds. And I think part of this might also be because Europeans tend to move less frequently. So if you know you're going to be in an apartment for 5 to 10 years, then obviously you're going to have a lot more leeway in terms of customizing it. Whereas in the US, people tend to be a lot more transient. That's my theory, at least. If you have another theory, then let me know in the comments.
So here you can see, like, here's our light fixture for our dining table, and we had to hang it from the ceiling and then thread it over to this little outlet thing ourselves. So I feel like everybody's a little bit of an amateur electrician here. Okay, number 3 is the laundry machine. It's very common not to have a dryer or to have a washer dryer combo. We are lucky enough to have both, but even...
So I think this is also kind of dependent on the country, because when I went to Spain, I saw a lot of people hanging their clothes out on the clotheslines on their balconies. But in the Netherlands, I don't think I ever saw that. Probably because it rained so much. I would think that in Denmark, it would be similar, because you can't necessarily hang your clothes outside to dry if it's always raining. So how does that work?
Even if you just have a washing machine, they're so slow. I think they're supposed to be more energy efficient, which is great, but my washer in the US would take 30 minutes for a load, and this one takes over 2 hours. Let me know if you want a part 2.
I want to say that might also be because washers and dryers, and again, I'm going purely based on my own anecdotal experience here. Not only are they more energy efficient in Europe, but they tend to be smaller. So you can't put as much stuff in there. So of course, laundry is just going to take longer. But yeah, I'm still a little bit confused about how you dry your clothes in a very rainy climate like Denmark if you don't have a dryer. Let me know in the comments if you have the answer to that. On to the next video.
3 culture shocks as an American living in Poland, apartment edition. Number 1, no air conditioning. Ah yes, the luxury of no AC. Instead, you're supposed to open these massive balcony doors and manually push the air in. And forget about just cranking them a little open. You either have to go fully open mode or suffer the consequences.
Wait, manually push the air in? Can't you just, I don't know, get a fan or something? I mean, that seems like it would be pretty inefficient. I don't know, I hope he's kind of saying that in jest or whatever. But one thing I love about European apartments, and I wasn't sure if this was a Netherlands specific thing, but based on this video, I guess it's not. They always have these really big windows. I love that so much. I love having big floor to ceiling windows. I love having a lot of natural light. Obviously, in a lot of Northern and Western Europe, you get a much more cloudy climate in general, so you have to really maximize the natural light you have. So the windows, they tend to not be tinted and they're bigger, which is really, really nice in my opinion. But with the air conditioning thing, this is a big point of contention for a lot of Americans. I'm from Texas. In Texas, you have to have air conditioning. It's pretty much a non-negotiable. You will die. You will literally just die. The heat wave that we saw in 2025, earlier this year in Europe, that was just every summer in Texas. That's literally how it is for months on end. So you have to have an AC there. But contrary to popular belief, a part of the US actually doesn't have air conditioning for the most part. I know in the New England area, which has a climate much more similar to that of the European climate, a lot of times they don't have AC. Coastal California, especially if you're right on the water, you don't have AC because you don't need it. You don't need AC when you're in a climate like what you would find in Poland. So, I mean, just open your windows, get a fan for airflow, And furthermore, just go outside. If the weather's nice enough for you to need to open your windows and doors to let the air flow, just go outside, enjoy the weather, go for a walk, go for a swim, and get out of your apartment. I think that's a big thing that Americans don't really understand. I'm not saying him in particular because I don't know him and his situation, but Americans tend to stay inside a lot more than Europeans, I've noticed. Europeans are outside. Life is lived outside of their homes. Go outside.
Consequences, like who designed the system. Number 2, light switches. Why are they outside the rooms? It's so inconvenient and confusing. I'm so used to going inside and turning them on. And don't get me started on the fact that the same switch...
That's not really that big of an issue, in my opinion. Here in our apartment in Thailand, let's say, for example, you probably can't see it right now, but for the bathroom, the light switch is on the outside of the door. You turn on the light switch, you open the door, you walk in, you do your business, you come out, you turn the light switch back off. I mean, it's not really that complicated. The only real issue that I run into with that is sometimes I forget to turn the light off because I'm just in such a rush or I'm tired or whatever. But other than that, that's not something worth complaining about, in my opinion.
Switch also powers the washing machine. Like, bro, what is this? Press the wrong button and you'll be doing laundry instead of actually lighting up the room.
Wait, that's something I've never seen before. Is that normal in Poland? That you turn the washing machine on with a switch? I've never ever seen that in my whole entire life. I didn't know that was a thing that existed in the world. How does that work? I mean, obviously it works like any other light switch or whatever, but that's really fascinating. Didn't know that existed.
And finally, number 3, no dryer. You want dry clothes? Well, too bad. You're gonna have to wait 3 business days for them just to dry. By the way, take a look at these beautiful Jingle Bell undies my girlfriend got me for Christmas. Anyways, honestly, why not just install dryers in every apartment? It's not that hard or complicated, and it would simplify the lives of millions.
So, I guess maybe this one right here answers the question of how people dry their clothes in wetter climates. I don't know if Poland has a wet climate like Denmark. Let me know in the comments, but I guess they just dry them inside. The only thing I could think about with this, I know my girlfriend ran into an issue with this when she was in Spain and she was drying her clothes on the clothesline like this, was that sometimes that would invite mold into the room. So I guess that would kind of be a whole separate problem. Probably a fairly simple problem to solve, but there has to be something I'm missing here. Because I refuse to believe that the majority of a continent, probably the majority of the rest of the world, doesn't use dryers if dryers are that much more convenient, effective, and efficient than clotheslines. So, I don't know. At least from my perspective, being here in Thailand, I've come to realize that there are certain things that I can definitely live without. For example, a dishwasher. We don't have a dishwasher in the apartment. This right here, these are my dishwashers, along with the sink. And I have a little scrubbing sponge, and it's plenty sufficient. So now I know, probably don't ever need a dishwasher ever again, if it comes down to it. So I assume that dryers are kind of similar in that regard. At the end of the day, once you put the clothes on the clothesline, that's all you really need to do. You just let them dry and then you fold them. So again, seems like something that's a relatively minor inconvenience. On to the next video.
Something I did not expect as an American living in the Netherlands is the level of creativity behind Dutch insults. They're really out here just taking diseases and using them as an insult. Yesterday, I was hanging out with a few Dutch friends of mine, and we were talking about a woman that we didn't like, and one of them muttered under their breath, "Ugh, kankerhol." And for a...
Listen, when I found out about this, I was equally baffled. Dutch people are some of the wildest people on this planet. I don't care what anyone says, just based on this alone, Dutch people are some of the wildest people on this planet. Now, to be fair, based on what my girlfriend told me, that is not something you say in your day-to-day life. You have to really, really hate somebody to be saying something like that. That's not a casual term that can be used as a term of endearment, like, let's say, for example, motherfucker or something like that. That's something that you use if you hate someone and are prepared for physical confrontation with them. You don't ever say that to somebody.
And for a moment, I thought they said canker sore, which is just like a little thing that you get in your mouth if you have something too spicy or you're too stressed. But then they explained it to me. As a form of insult, they will call someone a cancer and then put whatever word that we would use to describe people as the suffix. So in this instance, he literally called her a cancer whore.
Another thing I heard quite frequently in the Netherlands, this one is used fairly commonly, at least from my experience, is kut. They'll say kut and then put whatever comes after that. And I'll let a Dutch person explain that one in the comments below.
The moment that they all realized that I had no idea what they were talking about, they all chimed in. And the number of insults that came out of these people's mouths. We got typhuslet, which literally just means typhus slut.
I forgot about that one. I think is it not typhus though? Don't they pronounce it typhus? If you're Dutch, let me know in the comments, but I remember reading about that. There's a whole Wikipedia page about all of these different insults. And I think before I even moved to the Netherlands, I was reading through them and I was like, what am I getting myself into? But again, these are not terms that you just use on a regular basis. I don't know who she's surrounding herself with, but I don't think you'll really hear a whole lot of Dutch people just saying this stuff casually.
Slut. And then we also have typhus leer, which means sufferer of typhus. And I didn't know that typhus could be such an insult, but you have to admit, in terms of creativity, what would you prefer someone call you? An asshole or a voile typhuslet? Literally a dirty typhus slut. Using the same amount of energy it takes to say asshole, you are insulting them 3 times. You are calling them dirty, you are calling them infected with typhus, and you're calling them a slut. Voile.
I want to know the person who came up with that term as a cuss word. What happened to them? What happened to them to make them so mad that they decided to call someone a dirty typhus slut? Honestly, whatever that person did to them, they probably deserve to be called that.
Voile typhuslet. I really wish I was kidding when I say I now think that I'm gonna start calling people a cankerhole if I don't like them, because that literally just means a cancer whore, and I think that's hysterical. But if you are Dutch and you're watching this, can you please let me know some other fun little words that you call people? Because right now, I feel like I have the suffixes down. We have slet, we have leger, and I really hope I'm pronouncing that one right, and we have whore. Which, by the way, your guys' verb whore means here, so who thought of this? So now I'm thinking, what else can I add to the list?
So I'm curious to know, is this just a Dutch thing or do other European countries utilize this as well? If so, if you're from Europe, whatever country you're from, let me know what are some of the craziest, most out-of-pocket, egregious curse words that you use in your culture and in your country.